The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
And good evening, and welcome everyone to my new show, Mystical TV. And I've got to work on my lighting in here. My green screen is not working like it's supposed to for this white background, and it makes it look all washed out. I'm going to go to Walmart and buy a bunch of green cardboard. That's what works best. I'm learning how to do video production. Everybody, Mystical TV is brought to you a couple of times a month by the Mystical Fair Lexington. MysticalFairLex.com. We'll be talking about them more later in the show. Now tonight, my guest is Holly McCullogh. Now, did I even say your last name right?
You did. Yes, you did.
I did. I'm always worried when I get into these possibly silent letters like fall at the end of McCullogh, and said she could want McCullogh. She could, it could be, is that an Irish or Scottish name?
It's actually, embarrassingly, I always thought it was probably Irish. I think it's actually Scottish. So.
Well, see, I keep hoping my name is Scottish, but I keep finding out that Forsyth is like, there's so damn many of them that it's impossible to tell. They forgot they don't even know who they're kin to over there. But the reason I want mine to be Scottish is because then I would have a kilt. They actually have a coat of arms and everything, and I want that for myself.
Let's get one and pretend. Well, who's gonna know?
Yeah, who's gonna Google it? Everybody now. Now, Holly, you are I'm gonna let you know you're a bit of an anomaly. I've ran into you at the Mystical Fair. She is at the Mystical Fair Lex, but you're one of the few readers in there that I've never actually just sat down with and talked. So everybody, this is going to be a complete learning experience. We're practically strangers. We just became friends on Facebook like a month ago. So that tells you where I'm coming from. Now, Holly is a psychic medium, a Reiki master, and a shamanic metaphysical practitioner. I'm going to kind of work the list backwards, starting with the one I know absolutely the least about. What is a shamanic metaphysical practitioner?
You know, shamanism is practiced in every ancient culture. It's not just an American Indian phenomenon, and I use American Indian instead of Native American. Anybody born in this country is a Native American. The people I have met, it varies from person to person, tribe to tribe. Okay, now I'm going on to a whole different history lesson. But anyway, so I use American Indian. I hope that doesn't offend anybody. But so shamanism is not just something that is practiced with indigenous peoples of this country. It is practiced around the world and always has been practiced around the world. Everyone belongs to some ancient culture. Whether it's Celtic, African, South American, American, indigenous, and there are always medicine people. I grew up hearing medicine people. Shamanism wasn't really something or a word I heard until much later in life when I met people who identified as shamanic practitioners. And people use the word practitioner instead of saying, I'm a shaman, because that's considered egotistical. Okay. But, semantics. So if you really want to get down to it, but again, I don't know if that's really a popular thing to say either.
Okay, just to let you know right off the top of the thing, it's a wonder that I even do this show because I do not worry about stepping on toes. So, yeah, don't worry about it. We're not politically correct. I am the most politically incorrect metaphysical host on the internet, I'm willing to bet.
Okay, but anyway, getting back to it, it's basically the way I perceive medicine work, or what is now called shamanic work, is basically it's the old ways. It's the way of the ancestors. It's being in touch with the spirit of the land, spirit of the ancestors. It is connecting with nature. It is connecting with our higher selves for healing for all. And that is a common theme with anything I practice. It has to have a healing basis, not necessarily just physical healing like energy work, but it all has to come from a place of healing the mind, body, spirit connection, because it's all connected. It's all linked. If one is out of whack, they're all out of whack. There are lots of different practices within shamanic work, and that would be a course. That wouldn't just be an hour show. That would be an entire course. And it is confusing. And if you throw some of the language out there, it's scary for people. But it has to do with returning to wholeness, returning to wellness and oneness, and feeling that peace within yourself and that connection to all that is and all that is around you. Now, that's just my take and my perception. If you ask someone else who does shamanic work, they may have a very different spin or a slightly different take on that. That is my take on it. It is a connectedness to all that is. And we tap into whatever heritage we come from or whatever heritage we identify with. There are people that may not have a drop of American indigenous blood, but that's what they identify with, and so that's what they study. And there is no one cookie cutter way of doing things. It's like with any spirit work, it is a calling, hopefully. You know, you do your research, you read other people's work, you learn from other teachers. But in the end, all of this and all spirit work is a calling. And it's what calls your spirit. It's what calls your spirit home. And so maybe someone is practicing a form of Celtic shamanism or African shamanism or just any number of things. So any number of cultures or religions. So it's that's kind of a nebulous answer. I get that.
Actually, no. I would say it's a very good answer. Of course, I have my good friend that was just on the previous show with me, Coyote Chris Sutton, and he's trying to explain it to me. So that's why I made you do it again. But actually, what you just described makes perfect sense, because even in the Native American Indian, however you want to put it, but even in those cultures, there were different shamanic structures, if you will.
Yeah.
And he learned certain ones, and so it's not surprising to me that the way you described it, it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. It didn't mean the same thing to all of them, or doesn't mean the same thing to all of them. So I thank you for that. Now, just to finish up on that a little bit, now, is that something that you feel your psychic medium self led you to that, or which came first, the chicken or the egg?
That's actually a really good question. I started out, first of all, the psychic aspect of the work I do, that's just how I was born. That's how I was wired. Everybody has intuition. Everybody has a connection to a knowingness. Anybody who gets this tingling feeling in their gut, not that's like nervousness, but if they meet someone and they get a weird vibe off them for no reason, seemingly no reason, they're getting a hit. They're getting a psychic hit about this person. Maybe this isn't someone I need to be around. Everyone has intuition, but some people are born just straight up, full on, seeing stuff, and I almost said a dirty word. So, seeing stuff, all
it's 10 o'clock on the internet. What, go ahead.
Okay. So people are seeing shit all over the place. And so, but so a lot of us are just, that's how we're born. A lot of us come from families like that. That was not uncommon among my people. My grandmother was, I call her my greatest teacher, even though I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time learning from her just because of some family dynamics. But she was highly clairvoyant, very mediumistic. She told me, don't be afraid of death. Don't be afraid of spirits. If you see them, don't be afraid of hearing or seeing things. That's kind of what we do. And I'm sorry, I'm on my phone. And so if I'm like, you see a quarter of my face, it's just like, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Yeah. Yay. Here we go. So it was also something that was not uncommon. When I was a child, I'm sorry, you're looking at my curtain more than anything, I think. So when I was a child and I'd wake up and see a man standing in my bedroom that wasn't actually human any longer, it's sort of like I wasn't even scared of it at that point. It's like, hello, and then he'd disappear, It was nothing to go out in the backyard and take my little storybooks and read them to plants. I was the weird, like 8-9-year-old who was candle gazing and mirror gazing. It was just that's who I was from day one. And that's kind of the people I grew up around. It was not uncommon. My dad's family were from way down in the country, and it was like they called it the site, in quotation marks. And so that came first because that was just from birth. Now, the shamanism, as I know it now, actually came later. But when I was in my teens and 20s, I did learn about some of those practices, but we didn't, again, call it shamanism. It was just considered medicine work. I learned how to open a circle. I learned how to communicate with spirit. And there was more of an American Indian slant to it, being a firekeeper at sweat lodges and things like that. So it was a natural extension of one thing to the next, because I also had people in my family who did medicine work. So it's one of those things. It's which came first, the chicken or the egg, or, it's really, it's a natural extension. For me, it was just the natural flow. I had to be old enough to understand and be around the people who could help me learn some of the shamanic practices. And then later in life, with some people who are in the community and working now, who are wonderful teachers, they actually brought a different aspect of what is considered shamanic work into my life as an adult, with very set practices and ways of going about doing things, whereas before it was much more intuitively based. Is that an answer? Did that answer your question?
Yeah, actually, basically you told me the chicken was already pregnant. That was, I think that's what we got out of that.
Oh, all right.
Now, but in telling you that, I completely forgot what my next question was.
About Reiki?
Oh, no, I was going to ask you your background. I actually liked that part of the story. Over the years doing the show, I've talked to a lot of different types of psychics, and I've talked to a lot of people with different psychic backgrounds. The anomaly in your story is that you had a family that embraced it. Of course, yeah, because you had history, they had their own history with it. Is it too personal just to ask you where you grew up, knowing that I'm sitting in the buckle of the Bible Belt here?
Well, actually, I live in Louisville now. I grew up in Louisville. My dad's family were from way down on the Tennessee border. My mom's family, they were a hodgepodge of a little bit of everything everywhere. But I grew up in Louisville. And so here's the thing. Not everybody embraced it. And also it was accepted and known, but not always talked about. It depended on who you talked to. Yeah. My grandmother, she was born in 1916. Okay. So if she talked about this stuff publicly, she probably would have been lobotomized.
I was going to say burn the witch, but okay. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I got you.
Exactly but then my great grandmother that was actually not in her line, but that she married into, was an herbalist and a midwife. She actually delivered my mom, who was breech, and had to go in and oh, that's a gruesome story. We won't go there. But anyway, so there's always been all these. So again, I would pick up little tidbits of just walking around. Oh, that's that and that. That's such and such a plant. That's good for this or that. But it was never a formal education within the family. It was just random things would be said. Now, having said that, this was not all rainbows and roses. I had a very my mom's family, they were actually very kind and gifted and wonderful people. My mom had some mental illness. And so she was not the most maternal person in the world. And I don't feel like I'm oversharing because this is part of it. And I don't want to misrepresent and have people think, oh, it was just this grand, easy existence and you never have to work for anything. No, I worked my butt off with my own personal training and education my entire lifetime because she really wanted to almost stand in the way of it. My grandmother would even say, why aren't you teaching her what I taught you? And so then she would try to keep me away from my grandmother. But then my grandmother, when she'd have these opportunities, she'd like sneak in little tidbits of things. So it was a very weird dynamic. So it was just accepted, but it wasn't especially with my mom, it just wasn't talked about. And then every now and then she'd catch me doing things. She was like, you know where you get that, don't you? So don't try to fool me, you know? And so, so it was just one of those kind of things. It was just there. It was accepted. And because of the time period that they grew up in, it wasn't something you went out on the street and did readings for because they had to protect themselves and protect. It was truly an issue of protection because it was so stigmatized, which now I find highly ironic that it's almost the new Hollywood. You know, it's like if you're a psychic medium and you can make it big, it's like everybody's glitzy and glammy. And the way I compared it to a friend earlier today or a couple of friends was, it's like back when musicians were just musicians and you could look like whatever you want. And then MTV came along and you had to be the video star, you know? And so I've seen this shift in psychic work and mediumship. And it went from being really, truly careful about who you disclosed what to now it's, you know, a lot of people want to be rich and famous, which, you know, hey, that's great. But it also is just strange to me. You know, it's a strange dynamic.
Okay, right now I'm going to go ahead and do a word from our sponsor. Our presenting sponsor is, of course, the Mystical Fair Lexington, and you can find Holly there this weekend. The Mystical Fair is Lexington, Kentucky's only monthly psychic and holistic healing arts fair, and it's where I continue and actually started my own spiritual journey that took me down the path where I am now. Each month, the Mystical Fair offers the best in psychics, intuitives, mediums, as well as a variety of metaphysical vendors, local artisans and crafters, and independently owned small merchants who offer unique and special items. They also offer free seminars throughout the weekend that you're not going to find anywhere else. They support local. I'm always hearing shop local. There is no better place to shop local than at the Mystical Fair because they bring in all these wonderful talents every month, give them a home in order just to serve their community. Make plans to visit the Mystical Fair this weekend, 17th and 18th of August. It's at 1084 Whipple Court in the Employment Solutions Building, just off Newtown Pike. Visit their website for more information, mysticalfairlex.com. So, back to my guest, Holly McCullogh. Rick McCullogh is the one that got me doing the whole Irish brogue thing when I said his name. He said, you have to say it like that or I don't want you saying it. So I'm overemphasizing the McCullogh part now, and it's his fault.
Name, that's fine. Have fun. Yeah.
Now,
I like the name.
Now, give me a quick primer on Reiki. Now, the reason, everybody, that I put it like that, if you've watched any of my shows, you know I talk about I consider myself a light worker. Now, the reason I don't embrace the term energy worker, even though I work with energy, is that as soon as I say I'm an energy worker, people say, well, my shoulder hurts. And I'm like, no, I'm not that kind of energy worker. So anyway, I work with the light. But Reiki, I know, is like similar but different. So give me a quick primer on what Reiki is.
Reiki is channeling universal life force energy to help balance the energetic and auric body or bodies, because there's layers of them, for mind, body, spirit wellness that will then lead to the healing of any, disease, disease in the physical body. Because the idea is that by the time you have a physical ailment, it has already pushed through all of your, if you want to call it an aura or etheric bodies, all of your energetic bodies that surround us. It means that there's some chakra imbalances, and that there is a psychic, emotional, spiritual component to every physical ailment. Because even if you have a hereditary condition in your family, something has to trigger it. Not every single person will have it. So genes are very often triggered and unlocked. And so that usually has some kind of emotional component attached to it. Reiki is basically it's just simply a form of channeling light energy, universal life force energy through your eyes, thoughts, hands, heart chakra, however you choose to do it, to the person, planet, event. It doesn't have to be just to person. You can do it in person, or you can do it via a distance method. And it's to bring us back into energetic alignment. So that's the quick version of that. Now, do you have to be attuned to Reiki to do that? No, but to be attuned to this type of channeling energy work, yes, you need that attunement and you need that work to take that, to understand the concept of it. Without, it would take way too long to get into any more than that. Now, before I learned Reiki, I will say, and anybody on the planet can do this. All you have to do is hold the intention. And I always tell people to open up your crown chakra, and envision the purest white light. And no, I'm really bad with holding my phone here. Sorry. Hello, people. So, but visualizing and asking for divinity, asking for the higher power to bring that energy down through you, down through your body, down through your hands, and direct it where you want it to go. I did that years. I mean, I was doing that when I was really young. It was much later in life that I learned about Reiki, and I added that in, and it did amp up and make the energy work more focused. I will say that. So I'm a huge fan of it, but it's not something where if you don't have access to Reiki classes or someone who can do the attunements, or you don't have the money to take classes at the moment, you know what? Just start channeling energy, just pure energy, because you're channeling white light, God-like energy, period, the end. And that's my quickie version of it.
That was actually very thorough and easy to understand. See, now in my own case, I because every now and then I just have to talk about myself.
Well, good.
I was told when I got into the metaphysical realm, i.e. the mystical fair, and all these people were really, a couple of them actually freaked out about my energy. It was just like, wow, you've got this really, you've got the, but the drawback to having the type of energy that I have, now, as far as, we'll get into it more with the psychic medium stuff, but I am impervious to the supernatural world. I don't worry about it anymore. It's just, I'm Teflon coated or bulletproof, but it doesn't bounce off of me. All of the bad intentions of the world, all of the muck that goes through people's minds, all of the negative energy that gets thrown around in the world we live in today, sticks to me like skunk smell. And I carry this stuff around, and it's getting harder and harder for me to unload it. And so yeah. But I just want to throw that out there to let you know I do. That's kind of my background in it, is that I understand the concepts that you're talking about. I've just never progressed that far. For example, now to do Reiki, in your case, do you see auras?
I sense I sense, you know what, with me, the aura is not so much a color with me, it's the depth of the glow around them. I guess maybe I don't always practice the way other people do with energy work, because I don't look at someone and say, oh, you have this color aura, so it must mean this. That just never worked for me. So I didn't bother. You got to find what works for you and just what comes naturally for you. What comes naturally for me is when I work with someone, where the hell am I on this camera? Okay, there I go. So, good Lord Almighty. Okay. So when I work on someone, first of all, I am a channel. Anyone who is a psychic, a medium, an energy worker, it's easy to say I, but we always have to remember we are the channel. Mm-hmm. Okay. We are processing it and we're bringing it through. So if I say, when I do this, I am being led. So it's not really me as a being doing this. I am simply being led by spirit. I'm led by my healing team. I'm led by the person, spirit guides, guardians, mind, whatever. So let's put that out there first, because I don't want this to sound like I'm some big deal doing something, because I'm not. We are all channels, and everybody has good days and bad days with it too. But when I am working on someone, the way I feel the energy is I am directed and led to certain areas of the body. Now, when I'm led to certain areas of the body, I immediately will get a hit that what is the emotional component of it. So if there's a blockage in the throat, it's because they're not speaking a truth, or they were forced to shove their thoughts and emotions down, and that's where they're stuck. So sometimes I'll actually get in, and I say we, because it's the spirit guides that are doing this with me, or my healing team, and just pulling out energetic debris. Sometimes messages will come through when I did work on someone, anything from past life, sometimes past life, residual energy could be the cause of a physical ailment in this lifetime. I know it's a little trippy to think about, but it's real and it happens. Somebody with super bad ankles, and then all of a sudden I get down there and they didn't tell me they had bad ankles, but I realized, wow, you got really bad ankles because they were crushed in whatever accident in a past life, blah, 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 something like that. So that all of that is real, and it all flows together. So I get a sense of not necessarily seeing them with like the color aura around the whole body. I get a sense of, I really do work off the chakra systems when I'm talking about with purely energy work. So, and with Reiki and channeled energy work, because what I do is Reiki, I call it that, but it's also a combination of just general energy channeling as well. So for me, it's as much a psychic exercise as an energy work exercise. I always ask people if they're open to receiving messages while I'm working on them, because they may not be there for that, So, yes, I perceive the energy of each center and that person's individual energy, but it will vary depending on what part of the body. And if, like, for example, if a woman had a miscarriage, she's going to hold not just the heat or the whatever feeling in the reproductive organs. There's also going to be in the heart, typically in the heart chakra, there's also going to be a tremendous amount of grief that's held. All of that's got to be balanced to kind of help bring her back to wholeness, back to oneness, and back in balance. It's all about being back in balance. And that's what I'm hearing I'm supposed to say about all of this. It's all about being in balance. So for me, energy work it's not a quick fix. It's not a heal-all. It's somebody's not going to have high blood pressure and then walk away and not have high blood pressure, or they've got to do their part too. And, watch the diet, watch the salt, whatever. But it's getting the energetic part of the bodies, the physical, etheric, spiritual bodies in balance. Because when we are in balance, that's when we are more likely to heal.
That makes very, very good sense. I have talked to energy workers before that actually, well, I'll put it this way: if you have a head cold, it's because there's a demon. It's that type of stuff.
No.
But I like the way you put that. In other words, I never looked to energy work to heal an ailment. But I do believe, and you put it very well, with the whole balance thing, that if you take it out of the spiritual realm, if your mind's on straight, you're going to be more likely to be able to make the changes in your life to be able to heal. And it's really all the same thing. We got a quick commercial break. Be right back with more and Holly McCullogh.
Okay.
Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being.
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism,
spiritual advisement,
paranormal investigations,
inspirational presentations,
bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to coyotechris.com to learn more.
Welcome back, everybody, to Mystical TV, brought to you by mysticalfairlex.com. Little reminder on Spirit Mechanics, they too will be at the Mystical Fair this weekend. Holly, now I was actually back here giggling during the commercials because for some reason I think I've had more people come in the chat room and during this Two Psychics bullshitting episode than I did when I was interviewing the famous guy on the last show. So we've drawn some interest. Now we're going to get to what I consider the meat and potatoes, the whole psychic medium thing. I do consider myself a psychic for various reasons. Mm-hmm. I am not a medium because I don't. Now you tell me if you disagree, but to consider yourself a medium, you almost have to fall into the clairaudient or clairvoyant range. It's very hard just to be sentient and know shit. And or be aware of stuff and call yourself a medium, because what's your opinion on that?
I still think you can, because even if you don't think you have a strong clairvoyant or clairaudient leaning, but you feel more cognizant or clairsentient, you will still pick up information. Like you might just instantaneously know a story and think you just made it up. It could be someone's life story. So don't undervalue that or underestimate it.
I don't mean to undervalue it. I really don't. And claircognizant, I think is what I fall into. But it's so hit and miss.
Yeah. Just practice.
In other words, if somebody sits down across from me and says, I want to talk to my dead grandmother, it ain't happening with me. There is nothing she's going to do that's going to give me her cookie recipe and make it, fly out of my mouth.
But you still may pick up on spirit and be able to communicate with them, but maybe just not on demand. And, there are some mediums who won't do that. They will only bring through spirits that show up. They won't go looking for someone. So there are some working mediums that won't do that.
Now, personally, except for my spirit guides, now, when I go to a haunted location, then it's game on. If they want to tell me their story, fine. You tell me your damn story. But don't be getting in there. We're channeling. I'm very, very safe about it, and that's the way it's. I know that is my particular path. In your case, let's talk about. Of course, now when I talk about psychic medium, everyone. Medium to me, by definition, means the go-between. So between the spiritual world and I almost hate to use the word living, but that's what we're going to use for the sake of the conversation. Typical reading: someone sits down with you and says, what do people when you're doing psychic readings? Do people come up to you mostly and have a particular person they're wanting to talk to? Or do they just throw it out there and say, hey, is anybody around? How does that work for you personally?
if people have already had a lot of readings, they're more open to just whomever might show up. And sometimes no one shows up because it's more of a psychic reading, because there may be information they need more so than talking to someone that they've heard from before. Something going on in that person's life that it needs to be more of a purely psychic reading than a mediumship reading. But pretty much if someone's coming in for mediumship, they know darn good and well who they want to talk to. And, Gandhi could come through, but they don't want to hear it. They want to hear from that person they want to hear from. That's it. And I get it, because grief is horrible and debilitating. I get it. And I try my best to do what I can for them. But also sometimes they're just not ready to come through, or they're just not coming around. Everybody else might show up and we still will go through it, give a message, thank them for being there. And sometimes the person will come through and sometimes they won't. That's just part of it. I mean, it would be really egotistical to think I could sit there and say, okay, I need you to show up, and I need you to show up TikTok right now to a dead person who's moved on, hopefully.
And's got shit to do.
And exactly. But, but for the most part, people get what they need. And for me, the way I do psychic readings, I read energy. And so I start out working with spirit first. If they have questions, great. But there's plenty of time for that. But I start out first just picking up the energy of the vibe. Sometimes the readings almost sound like an advice session, but I have no idea what I'm getting advice about, because they'll just tell me what to say. I say it and it resonates, and they're like, no, that makes sense. I get it. But to me, it just sounds like I'm giving random advice, because I've kind of put it out there to spirit that unless I need to know what this is about, I feel like it's almost a violation of privacy. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, but with mediumship, it's a little more hit or miss. Something psychically will always come through. With mediumship, it is a little more hit or miss. It just depends on who needs to come through for what reason. And I always tell people, you might be here to talk to your mom. Your first grade teacher might be the one that shows up. Sorry, I'll see if your mom is willing to show up, but it may or may not happen. And I think sometimes people get frustrated with that. And people who have never had a reading, holy moly, you can never give them enough evidence. You could give them the person's name, a hobby, and the license plate of a car, and it's still not a lot, it's not going to be enough. And then other people, it's like you have two pieces of evidence, because I do believe in evidential mediumship. You need to be able to prove it. You need to be able to make some kind of connection to make it real for the person. And so it's, every reading is different. Everybody's expectations are different. But it always starts out first as a psychic reading, because that might be what that person needs more. But yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. You just never know what it's going to be each time.
One thing I've got a good idea from your bio on your website. By the way, everybody, handsandhearthealing.com. Handsandhearthealing.com.
Well, or you can just my name.net. I put another domain on there because I thought that would be easier. So my name, HollyMcCullogh.net.
Yeah, but then people have to know how to spell McCullogh. See,
that's the point.
See, handsandhearthealing.com. Everybody knows how to spell that. Anyway, I want to back up a little bit. When you said when you do a psychic reading, now you've kind of alluded to. Do you feel that you're making the connection through their spirit or your spirit guides? That's where I went with the bio, that you work with spirit guides. How do you, who's whispering in your ear?
It depends. Sometimes my guides are always with me. Usually it's going to be the other person's guides, and I'm also tapping into that person's energy field. It could be that person's higher self, which is a really cool thing. If you've never meditated, and anybody out there, if you've never meditated or done a guided meditation to meet your higher self, try it. It's incredibly cool. So, and it's very comforting, and it lets you know truly how wonderful and spiritual you are and all your problems. I feel like somebody needs to hear this. So it's, somebody needs to hear this. So if you're feeling like if there's somebody out there who is in despair, having an issue, something's not right, and they are really on the brink of making some really bad decisions, connect, ask your higher self to come to you, to give you messages, because this is someone who's highly clairvoyant and clairaudient and has a lot of abilities. It is okay to meet and connect with your higher self. Do that and understand and see who you really are as a soul. And I think it will create a shift in your daily practice. And okay, so now it's gone. So there you go. Whoever needed that, there you go. Sorry about that.
Honestly, might have been me. Because I've had a lot of, and actually the whole message of it is meditate. I've had trouble lately. Because I was talking about the funky energy and everything. And I feel like because I've been shielding myself so strongly against all this bad energy, that I've really lost my connection to my spirit guides. One of which, incidentally, now here's a little weird side story. I actually had one psychic try to tell me one time when she was talking to one of my spirit guides, she said, "Oh my God, this is you." She somehow in the shuffle of things, she actually, I don't know if she's right or wrong, but she tried to tell me that my spirit guides that I identify with is actually a form of my higher self.
That's entirely possible. Yeah.
So,
why not? Why not?
But,
it's spirit, it's energy.
So yeah, I'll put it this way. If there was somebody else out there that needed the advice, fine, but I needed it myself. So thank you for that. Now taking it one step further. Now here's an inside baseball type medium question. Do you make the delineation between what we would commonly call ghost, being the wayward spirits, the ones that don't go through the process, they don't fill out their damn paperwork, they just hang around,
right,
versus spirit? Do you make that delineation?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought this up, because this is something I wanted to talk about too, because I primarily the work I do, it's actually readings. I do more readings than anything, and I love psychic work, but I think my highest calling and the thing that is most important to me is working with what people would call earthbound spirits. I tend to call them unresolved. So the difference for me would be resolved, you've moved into the light; unresolved, you have chosen not to for any number of reasons. But to make it easy, we'll just say earthbound, or the people who have moved on into the light. There is a distinction. Basically, a ghost, if you want to call it that, would be considered more of an earthbound. It's nothing more than the same person with the same foibles and the same problems. They just don't have a body. And they do not have that enlightenment that happens when you move into the light, and that sense of resolution and peace and understanding that happens when they move into the light. And then that's when they also kind of become a drain on the people around them, because they're disembodied, but with the same jacked up problems. Okay. So to put it that way. So that's one of the things that has happened, and spirit has been the big teacher on that work, because they've taught me different ways of being basically the liaison between the earthbound and the gateway. I used to call it a portal, and I have really smart ass guides, and they just laughed and said, "Oh honey, no, it's a gateway." So it's called the gateway to the other side. Not a portal.
I call it a door.
A door? Okay, that works. But a portal for me, portals and vortices are actually two very distinctly different things and separate from the gateway to the other side. So I was using
absolutely. I agree 100%. Thank you.
Yes. So that is really important work to me, and I do make that distinction. First, and you talked about channeling. Please don't anyone ever try to channel an earthbound spirit. Don't make friends with an earthbound spirit. You can feel sorry for them. You can want to help them. But the goal is to move them on as quickly as possible, because they're not your friend. It's a dead person without a body who needs to move on and be resolved. Okay. But believe it or not, I've run into that. Spirits that are resolved and have moved into the light, when they come in through a reading or when they come into to your energy field. Sometimes people get scared because they just simply misunderstand it. If your light flickers or you see a door shake a little bit and you get freaked out and everybody starts screaming demon, thank you, TV, but everybody starts screaming demon, or it's a ghost and I'm terrified, it could just be that's the only way they can get through to you, and they're trying really hard to reach you. It may not be anything bad at all. Now, if there's a denseness in the energy, you feel uncomfortable, you feel creepy, you get the jeebies, then it's probably something that may be earthbound. And yeah, you need to kind of move it on. And so for people who are not versed in that particular line of work, anyone out there ever, anywhere, all you have to do is call on a gateway guide. You don't have to know who it is. And if you don't remember that, just Archangel Michael is the powerhouse of crossing work. I mean, stellar powerhouse. He's moved on some things that wouldn't move on for me and were just kind of downright scary. And I don't mean scary like demonic, but I mean, if someone was an asshole in life, they're going to be an asshole in death just without a body.
I wish I had a nickel for every time I've said that. Continue.
There you go. Okay. So, and you're right. I mean, that's it. So, but just call on him, tell them to move on, and none of the screaming and demon be gone and other screaming stuff. All you're doing is feeding it energy. And it's hard to do sometimes, especially if they wake you up in the middle of the night, you know. But just try to put a cap on the fear, take a deep breath, understand what's going on, call in your team. Again, you don't even have to know who the team is, but everybody knows Archangel Michael, and it's not a religious. It's not Archangel Michael as in Saint Michael or this, that, or the other. Archangels cover a whole lot of. That's my cat Agatha. If you can hear her in the background, I don't know if you can hear that. She's protecting her toy. Anyway, so. But Archangel Michael will swoop in a hot minute and kind of pull out anything that doesn't serve. Okay. So that's important work. And that's one of the things that I love doing the most, actually. Yeah. But there is a distinction, a huge one. A huge one.
We're going to touch just a little bit more on this when we come back. We've got one more commercial break, everybody. We'll be right back.
Everyone is talking about CBD oil. Most of us know that CBD is a cannabis compound that has significant medical benefits, but does not make people high. Its benefits include pain relief, anti-seizure properties, anxiety relief, fights cancer, reduces the risk of diabetes, and it is even used as a sleep aid. Blue Leaf Naturals CBD and hemp products are full-spectrum hemp extract oils. They use only hemp grown in Kentucky, supporting Kentucky farmers and businesses and helping you and your family stay healthy and well. Blue Leaf Naturals, created with care from seed to shelf. Visit their website at blueleafnaturals.com. Blue Leaf Naturals, a Kentucky proud company.
You've heard me talk about Mark and Shelley James down to Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Akashic Awareness. Akashic Awareness is a metaphysical healing and learning center unlike any other in Kentucky. A large selection of crystals, gems, and minerals greet you the minute you walk in the door, and from that point onward, the journey is yours. They offer a great selection of metaphysical tools, state-of-the-art healing classes, and lectures, and it is a place that is void of judgment. Everyone is welcome. All belief systems are welcome. It's all about finding self. Akashic Awareness is open Tuesday through Saturday, noon until 6:30, 7 on Friday and Saturday. This weekend, they will be at the Mystical Fair Lex. MysticalFairLex.com. You can find them this weekend. But in the meantime, visit their website, AkashicAwareness.com. They've got a calendar of events almost daily. They've got something going on in that place. And get on their email list. AkashicAwareness.com. Okay, final segment now with Holly. And now we're talking ghosts and spirits, because that's my bread and butter. That's how I got into all this. I wanted to ghost hunt. And then I started getting into all the technicalities. First of all, I can tell you've got a little bit of that attitude, but you're still just a little bit polite about it. I have come to the realization that ghosts, for the most part, are just tedious and needy and just, with few exceptions. But now I have to admit, I did make friends with one. I didn't channel her ass, but she taught me to ghost hunt. So I have to give a shout out to Loretta at the Ross Opera House. So there's my sin. When you were talking about crossing, now I call on the Archangel Azrael much.
Okay.
Because that's the angel of death and not the one that in the movies.
Yeah.
I guess you could say I like the hierarchy of it. It's like for your typical ghosts that just, okay, I'm ready to go home. Azrael can show them the way and fill out all the paperwork for them. This is where, okay, now I've had a lot of psychics pound me down about this, but I understand, and it's because I don't really I can't wrap my head around the concept of archangels all that well, but I hate to bother Archangel Michael all the time.
He's infinite. Anything in the angelic, anything, even spirits. I mean, they can be wherever they want to. I used to feel the same way too. It's like, oh man, I don't want to be. No, it's not that way at all. And it is hard to. It is absolutely hard to wrap your head around that there could be that much infinite ability and energy in any being. And we have put this vision in our head with a name of Archangel Michael, but maybe it would help instead of a guy with a sword hanging around, that looks very human to us. Instead, think of him as what he is, which is a big, divine, just, he is, I was going to say a big ball of light, and that just almost made me laugh. So I had to stop for a minute and rephrase that in my head. But he is an enormous, vast, you can't create or destroy energy. He is just an absolute powerful mass of energy. Imagine the most radiant, glowing light that could be everywhere and anywhere, because that is an extension of God. That is an extension of divinity. Whether you want to say God, Goddess, Allah, whatever, but it is an extension of divinity. And that is without limit. And that might be an easier way to conceptualize Archangel Michael's ability to be everywhere, anywhere, at any time, because that is an extension of God.
I agree with you, but I need the sword imagery. I love it. I don't know if I got that from the Oracle deck that I had or whatever, but to me, he's a sword dude. So I've got to hold on to that for myself. Now,
I hold on to you, but energetically, that's what he is.
Okay.
And as far as with the earthbounds, just really quickly, I actually have. Well, some of them are just mean and nasty. I'm not crazy about those, but I have an immense amount of compassion and love for these spirits, because these are people who were probably murdered or confused or whatever. Life broke that person, and so I really do. But I also keep it in perspective. Oops, there we go again. I had it for a while. It's keeping in perspective that this is a job. It's like a surgeon is not going to get attached to the patient and start chatting with them. It's like they have a job to do. They got to get in there and get something taken care of for their well-being. So, but I really do have a lot of compassion for them. And that's why I hold it so dear to my heart doing that crossing work. But yeah, some of them are pains in the ass.
See, now I do agree with you about, some of them, their life was taken away far too quickly. And now a lot of times they're pouting about it, but I get it, because it is the psychology of it. You take something away from me and I'm going to be mad too. Now one thing, but now tell me, as a psychic, here we go. We'll just do it this way. I'm finding that more and more of the earthbound spirits that are around now, the newer ones, we'll put it that way, the newer ones. I think in the old days, if you will, 20, 30, 40, and definitely on back, we all had such a strong family attachment that when we passed away, our loved ones that had went before us were standing in the light, in the doorway, in the gateway, saying, "Hey, come on over. Good to see you again." And so, no, I worry now that we've lost that connection to family as a society, that I don't want to. I'm not telling you that it's Ghostbusters and the streets are going to fill with ghosts. But I'm finding the ghosts that I do encounter that are more recently departed have less good reason to be here. I'll put it that way.
Okay. The ones that I work with, they do have reason to be here. I haven't really found that as much, but now I have found that they will go through for a pet. They'll see a dog. It's almost always a dog. They will go through if a dog comes through to take them over. That's actually happened quite a bit. That's happened as much as
I never thought of calling on a pet.
Pets, big time. Well, that's what I'd go through for. So, I mean, big time pets. Pets are the thing. But then, oh shoot, I lost my thought because then I got all distracted by the thought of the pets. Here's the thing. I don't worry, and I just had this conversation with someone earlier today. When people die, even if they're afraid of death, or if they may have some inclination to try to stay, most spirits, I feel like the ones who stay behind, generally, if they're here long enough without a body and a lot of people can't see or hear them, all of a sudden they want some help and want some intervention. It's only the ones who are here and up to no good who don't want to go into the light, and you have to fight with them a little. But when people die and that gateway, that light opens up, and that light is real. People talk about a tunnel. I mean, I had a near-death experience, and I was dead for a long time. I didn't see a tunnel. I just went immediately, boom, there was a light. It is so overwhelmingly blissful and perfect, and that's why people call it home. It is. I have never ever in my life felt that the love and acceptance and compassion that I did when I was in that light, and I haven't since. And when you think about the love you have for a child or a family member or a spouse or a pet, it is intense. You give your life for them. As intense as that love is, it was dwarfed by what I felt when I went into that light, which is hard to talk about, hard to wrap your head around. That is hard to wrap your head around. I wasn't supposed to stay. I was supposed to have that experience to tell people about it, to help them with their own end of life issues or with a loved one who has moved on. But sometimes, and I'm getting a little, I guess, disjointed with my story here, but spirits very often, even if they're unsure about moving on or they don't have someone to come get them, they don't have like a close-knit family to come get them, when they feel that light, that family almost doesn't matter anymore, because the soul family on the other side and the guides waiting for them is so incredibly real and loving that that's all you want. That's all you need. And you will run into it. And with earthbound spirits that I've worked with, when that gateway opens, sometimes I don't even have to talk to them to convince them to go over. They just look at it and they look at me, literally, it's kind of funny, wave and run into it.
Mm-hmm. I've encountered that.
Yeah.
I do understand that. Now, my personal understanding, tell me if this is how you interpret it, because I think a lot of this is just up to the way Spirit gives us stuff that we can wrap our heads around it. Mm-hmm. You described the light very, very well there, and I believe that is the way it happens when you pass away and you lift up out of your body. Mm-hmm. That's, right with you there. I never, when you cross the spirit over, do you feel like you're opening the door or you're just pointing them in the right direction? My interpretation is that the light is always there, just for whatever reason they lose it.
Yeah. When first I ask for, I have a specific guide just for the gateway, and that's her function with me. I ask her to open it. That is sort of the calling card. That's pushing the button to say, okay, here we go, we're on. And it opens. It always opens on my right side. I will feel a lightness, a brightness, and the right side of my face will even get warm, and my ear will sometimes even turn red and get hot. So that's my process. It might be different for other people. So again, I'm only speaking from my experience,
Right.
not yeah. But so I ask my gateway guide to open the gateway. I open it up, and sometimes that takes care of it. Sometimes it takes a little discussion. Sometimes, depending on the circumstances, a little bit of work has to be done, and I have to call in some other helpers. And I asked one time, why are we needed? Can't they just say, I'm ready? Ring the buzzer, open the door. I mean, why can't that happen? And the closest answer I could get is that because they're still so human, but they have no contact with other humans in a really direct way. And the angelic world or the gateway or the other side seems so foreign, and they wonder if they're allowed, or they don't even know how to access it anymore. It's like they lost the roadmap. They don't even know how to ask, because think about it. If you're dead for any length of time and no one can see or hear you, and you're still living in your human mind, you go a little crazy too. So it's not a good thing. It's not a healthy thing. And they need to resonate with another human, someone that could actually, oh my God, you can see me and hear me. And I feel like them. I talk like them. I think like them. I look like them. I have the same energy as them because I'm still very human. And so the comparison that was made for me to help make this sense is it really is like a liaison. We are the ambassador to kind of help them through, or the tour guide almost, because they trust us because we're still familiar. It's sort of like if you were in, let's say you were in Morocco and you're at the bazaar and you're totally lost and don't know how to get back to your hotel. And all of a sudden, around the corner, you hear an American voice speaking English. You're going to make a beeline over there and say, oh my gosh, I have no idea where I am. Do you have any idea where I am? And can you help me? That could be a serial killer. But you're sure going to make a beeline over there because they're speaking English. And it's kind of the same thing with the dead spirits. It's like, you speak my language. And then they're like, because sometimes that is the conversation that has to happen with the spirit. So I can go, well, they ask about hell. There was one guy that wasn't sure. He's like, well, will I see Jesus? And I said, if you believe, you will, because that was his belief system. So he ran right in. Some of them just had to be convinced they could be of more help to their loved ones still here, especially when the children are left behind. That's hard. Sometimes you just have to tell them you can be of more help when you have more energy and you're in an enlightened state. Right now, you could possibly drain that person. So sometimes there's a little discussion, and I've actually also seen some that were they had so internally corrupted. And again, it's what people might perceive as, like the scary demon that you see on TV. It's actually just a really badass human who's so corrupted and turned so far away from the light that they just are mean. They're plain old mean. And now in that instance, you just shut down negotiations. They don't want to go into the light. They enjoy wreaking havoc. And so at that point, I've actually seen arms of light reach out, just pick them up and haul them in. And sometimes that's when Michael gets involved. But that's rarely, really, really, and let me emphasize that, really rare. It's more likely that, well, the best example is there was a guy named Arthur. And he didn't cross because he spent most of his life on a bar stool instead of taking his paycheck home to his family. And he just felt like he didn't deserve to go. He had a lot of internalized guilt. And once he realized, we talked, blah, 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 he went. So sometimes it could be something like they didn't do something horrific, or something horrific didn't happen to them. They were just Joe Blow, who was just kind of afraid to go and embarrassed and ashamed. But they recognize, again, we speak the same language. So that's the closest I can get, because I was always boggled. I'm like, you guys are so much more enlightened and powerful and know so. Why do you need me? Foul-mouthed me who eats too much pizza. Why do you need me to do this work for you? And it's like, it's just having an interpreter. That's a good way to put it. We're sort of like the human interpreter for the other interpreters who are still scared.
Good way to explain it. Great way to explain it. And it takes us right up to the end of the show. Holly, thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us. Everybody, now we've been talking to Holly McCullogh. You can meet her this weekend at Lexington's Mystical Fair. MysticalFairLex.com. It's on Whipple Court. Starts tomorrow, runs through into Sunday. Holly, it's
I won't
been
be
great
there
talking to
Sunday,
you.
though.
Oh, you won't be
Yeah,
there?
I won't.
Okay. Tomorrow, people.
I'll be there Saturday, but not Sunday.
Tomorrow. You want to meet Holly? Go tomorrow.
Thank you.